Yes, hello once again and welcome back to part 3 of the Vets MXDN event 2011, the racing highlights, and this is the remainder of the 2 races from the Saturday's race programme, and we're going to kick things off here with the 500 Evolution class. Plenty horsepower lined up in this race as they leave their line and make their way into turn 1. Quite a tight right-hander here for all the bikes to filter into, but we just hope everybody can get round without having any kind of collisions. It looks like most people made their way through there, so we're looking at our race leader. I think that's Tom Church on the CR500 Honda, who is your race leader. That looks like number 10 Scott Elderfield in second position on the KX Kawasaki bike. I think that's Ryan Voasi there in third position, number 3 just going through. We'll just have a quick listen to these big 500 two-strokers as they head up the hill. Just going to pick up our race leader again. It is indeed still number 8 Tom Church, second is Scott Elderfield, third is Ryan Voasi on that big Kawasaki. Just watching a few of the other riders as they make their way through to start lap 2. And number 4 just making the turn now. I think that's Lee Jackson, also riding a big KX Kawasaki bike. But quite a few quick riders in this Evolution 500 class. Number 63 just making his way through the turn is Trevor Shepherd. So once again we're back to our race leader. It is still at number 8 Tom Church, who is leading Scott Elderfield in second place. Ryan Voasi is still in there in third on the KX Kawasaki bike, and I think that's actually Gordon Crockard who's in fourth position there. I just went through the turn there, number 7, so it's a good ride by Gordon Crockard. And number 2 just making his way through there, that's Gordon Hopgood. But you can see these guys have certainly got the throttles pinned on these big Evolution 500 bikes as they make their way up the Farleigh Hill. But as you know, this fantastic racetrack here at Farleigh Castle certainly has some history to it, dating a way back to the pre-war era. And I still recall one of the big events at this track in 1985 when the legendary Dave Thorpe absolutely wowed the crowds with that famous last to first comeback. And it was a fantastic event, and one that certainly goes down in the Farleigh Castle history book. So we're looking at a new race leader here. It's number 10 Scott Elderfield, who leads at number 8 Tom Church, but it looks like Ryan Voasi there, number 3 in the background. It looks like his race is run. Looks like he has some mechanical issues with his Kawasaki, so it looks like Ryan Voasi is going to have his first DNF of the day. And number 11 just coming through, that's William L. Number 2 just making its way towards us is Jason Hopgood once again. Now we're looking at number 111, that's Paul Maguire, who's just about to be passed by number 18, that's Alfie Smith on the KX Kawasaki. Alfie Smith actually went on to win the 500 Evolution class at the end of the 2 days, so you can see that Alfie is absolutely bombing around this Farleigh Castle racetrack. And actually I think Alfie is your new race leader of this Evolution 500 class. I think Scott Elderfield is now in second position, but Alfie Smith is certainly making that big Kawasaki work. And we're just taking a look here at number 30, that's Neil Hudson, believe it or not. Number 18, Alfie Smith, looks like he's just getting ready to pass the motocross legend. I don't suppose Alfie will have got past Neil Hudson if it was 20 or 30 years ago. But nevertheless, it looks like Alfie Smith is your new race leader as we head towards the checkered flag in this Evolution 500 race. As we keep our eye on number 10, that's Scott Elderfield heading towards the checkered flag, but Scott would eventually finish in the runner-up position in the Evolution 500 class over the course of the 2 days when the results were calculated, so this was still a very good weekend for this very talented young rider. Okay, next up we're away with England versus France in the pre-1983 class. Quite a lot of 125s in this race as you listen to them making their way through. Now this particular race would be the very last race of the Saturday's race programme, so we'll move on to the Sunday's racing action immediately after this race, but as the riders make their way up the hill, we'll try and pick out one or two of the riders as they make their way back across the finish line. And we're looking at number 1, I think that's Alex Foreman, and he's riding a quite quick 1981 RM125 Suzuki. Looks like in second position, I think it's number 124, I think that's Richard Chin in second position there on the Kawasaki. A couple of the French riders just making their way through. Quite a lot of 125s in this race, but of course you can ride really any bike as long as it's up to 1983 in this class. And number 3 there, just flying past, is actually not listed in the racing programme for the day, so I'm unable to identify that particular rider, but he seems to be going quite well on that Suzuki. Looks like another DNF for one of the French riders, number 36. But it looks like it's still number 1, Alex Foreman, your race leader. Looks like he's riding a little RM125 Suzuki from 1981, one of the first ever Suzuki water-cooled motocross machines. But Alex would finish in 7th overall in this class over the course of the weekend, so he may have not had such a good run in the remaining races, but as you can see he's going absolutely superb here and blasting across the start and finish line. Now, looks like Richard Chin is still in there in second position on the Kawasaki. And number 12 there, that's Warren Berthium. I do apologise if that's not the right pronunciation for that particular rider's name, but he's still doing very well there on another one of those water-cooled Suzuki bikes. And we do have a racing curfew here at Farleigh Castle. I think the racing is not allowed to go on past 5 p.m. Due to the surrounding houses, etc. So they do have a curfew where all the racing should be done and dusted by that particular time. Number 30 coming towards us is another one of the French riders, but unfortunately isn't listed in the racing programme, so I can't identify him. But here's your race leader, number 1, Alex Foreman, who's basically led this race right from the start gate, doing absolutely superbly on that little water-cooled 125 Suzuki. But you can see the light beginning to go here at Farleigh Castle as the Saturday's race programme comes to an end. As I mentioned previously, we will be going straight into the Sunday's race programme right after the conclusion of this pre-1983 England versus France race. But this wide open circuit here at Farleigh Castle is certainly quite hard work for these little 125s with their smaller engines, and these riders have got their throttles pinned most of the way around this track, so it's quite hard work for a little 125. But we're looking at our race leader once again. It's still number 1, Alex Foreman, on the water-cooled Suzuki 125 bike. I think this is Alex starting his last and final lap of this race. And moving up into second position is another one of the Frenchmen. It's number 35. I think that's Michael Mousquin. It's just making his way through there in second position. So we're picking up the battle for the lead of this pre-1983 England versus France race. It's still number 1. That's still Alex Foreman, your race leader. Second is number 35 for France. That's Michael Mousquin, and they go up the hill almost together. So it's going to be a good run to the finish line between these two very talented riders. But it's now Michael Mousquin from France who has the advantage over number 1, Alex Foreman. So as they make their way to the turn at the shed and make their way down the hill, it's now Alex Foreman who is your race leader. Michael Mousquin is just blasted past Alex Foreman to take the lead, so it looks like it's going to be a win for the French, but the Frenchman looks like he's missed a gear. I think that's Alex Foreman who has won that race with Michael Mousquin in second position. A nice shake of the hand between the two riders at the end, which is a good thing to see. Okay, that brings us to the very first race of the day for the Sunday's race programme. This is the Evolution Class 250s, and this is the first race of the Sunday's race programme. Now, during the night and early in the morning, the track was heavily watered, so track conditions are very slippy for these bikes, with them being the first bikes out on the Sunday. But I don't know what Greta Thunberg would make of the pollution coming out of those two strokes, but she would certainly have something to say about it. So they're all good to go as they leave the line and head into turn 1 for our first race on the Sunday, the Evolution 250s. And actually I think that was Benjamin Millward there that made quite a good start, number 113. But as I mentioned, the track is very slippy at this stage, so riders have to be a bit cagey with that throttle before the track begins to dry a bit. So it certainly looks like it's number 113, Ben Millward, who is your race leader. I think he's riding a YZ250 Yamaha bike. So Ben is your race leader on lap 1, but as you see him coming round the corner, the back end of the bike slipping all over the place in the very wet conditions. But let's just have a listen to some of these 250s. So we're back with our race leader, number 113, Ben Millward, on the YZ250 Yamaha. As you can see, the back end of the bike stepping out all over the place with the rather wet conditions, but after a few races the track will certainly be in prime condition. But up until then we'll have to be very careful with those throttles. But it looks like a couple of KXs have had it coming together there. So there's your race leader, number 113, Ben Millward. In second place, just made his way through there, that's number 35, John May, who of course won the last Evolution 250 class race. So John's in quite a good position there to make a challenge for the lead of this Evolution 250s. But as you can see, the centre of the track here at Farleigh Castle is more or less just wide open, although the descent down the steps in the wooded section can be a bit tricky, especially if it gets wet. And just making his way up the hill now, just coming out of the turn, is number 197, I think that's James Shand. But you can see just how wet this track is for the first race of the morning. Still very wet indeed, but nevertheless these guys are still putting in some quite quick laps on these 250 Evolution bikes. Looks like another one of the Kawasaki riders is Kima Cropper there, but it looks to be okay, but looks like he's got a dead Kawasaki. So it's still number 113, Ben Millward, your race leader. Second is this man here, number 35, that's John May on the CR250 Honda. But it's still Ben Millward with the early advantage, but John May looks like he's catching Ben in each and every turn, so this could be another cracking race to the checkered flag. But it's still Ben Millward, number 113 on the YZ Yamaha, who leads number 35, John May. So as they exit the turn, Ben looks like he's got a decent lead at the moment. The rest of the riders doing their very best in the tricky conditions at the moment. And number 15 coming towards us there, I think that's Daniel Woodman. But it certainly looks like we've got a new race leader. It's number 35, John May on the CR250 Honda. Looks like John has passed Ben Millward. Ben is now in second position there. You've just seen him going through. It looks like it's quite a long way back to the third placed position rider. But we're concentrating on the battle for the lead of this race. It's still John May, number 35, who leads Ben Millward, number 113 on the YZ Yamaha machine. Ben was doing really well in the early stages of this race, but this man here, John May, is absolutely flying on this Evolution Honda bike. And he's already won a couple of races here at Farleigh Castle. on the Saturday's race event, so it looks like John's heading for another win, if barring any mechanical issues, of course. But this has been another fantastic ride from that very talented rider. So as we head towards the closing stages of this first race of the Sunday, the Evolution 250 class, and just looking at some of the other riders making their way through to begin their last and final lap. Number 125 going up the hill there, that's Richard Benham. But we're looking at our race leader as he comes round to head towards the checkered flag. It's number 35, John May, on that absolutely rapid CR250 Honda Evolution machine. So it's John May in the first position. It's still Ben Millward here in second spot, but it looks like it's going to be another win for John May. Ben Millward was doing absolutely perfect there at the start of this race, but John May has certainly kicked up his heels and blasted through to lead this Evolution 250 class race. So as John heads up to the shed and makes his way down towards the checkered flag, this is going to be another very good deserved win by this talented rider as he locks all the brakes up on that Honda. But it's a win for number 35, John May, with Ben Millward in second position. Okay, next up we're moving on to the Vets International Modern class race. These of course are for modern machines, so if you like your 4-stroke Hondas and 4-stroke Kawasaki's and KTM's, then you'll certainly like some of the action in this race. So as the riders are just taking their positions behind the start gate, quite a big turnout of these modern machines at Farleigh Castle. Super quick, some of these bikes, and top of the range suspension of course, so they're all lined up ready to go, just waiting on the gate to drop. And so as they leave the line, a big thunder of mostly 4-stroke machines as they make their way into turn 1, but it looks like it's number 1, I think that's Greg Hansen, who is the race leader there on the Kawasaki. Oops. Looks like one of the Kawasaki riders has been pinned against the chestnut fencing, but it looks okay. But most of the riders have managed to negotiate the first 1 or 2 turns in this modern Vets International class race. So we're looking to the wooded section to see who's going to emerge as our race leader. It looks like it's number 1. That is of course Greg Hansen on the KXF 4-stroke Kawasaki bike. Very quick machine. It looked like I think that was Phil Mercer in 3rd position, just making his way through there, number 200. So if he gets up there beside Greg Hansen, we could see a very good battle in this modern class race. But there's certainly plenty horsepower out there for these modern machines. I think most of them are 500 bikes, 500 cc's. As they head their way up the Farleigh Castle Hill. Number 4 there, I think that's Scott Sims on the big 500 Honda. But here's your race leader. It's number 1, Greg Hansen, as he crosses the line to begin lap 2. Very quick rider on this big Kawasaki. It looks like 2nd position now is number 200. I think that's Phil Mercer. Now Phil Mercer's a very quick and talented rider, so we should see some fireworks between these two riders if they begin locking handlebars. So there is your race leader, number 1, Greg Hansen. It looks like number 200, Phil Mercer, is beginning to close in on Greg Hansen, so we should see quite a good race between these two riders. But it's still Greg Hansen who has the early lead as we watch him leap from the jump at the top of the hill. But Greg Hansen is still looking good in first position. And as you can see, the track's still pretty slidey and wet at this point as the mud begins to fly, but hopefully as these races continue, the track will dry and we'll see much faster racing in the following races to come. So there's your race leader as he heads up the hill. It's still number 1, Greg Hansen. Phil Mercer is still sitting there in second position, but certainly moving up closer to this Kawasaki 4-stroke rider. So as he makes his way up the hill, it's still Greg Hansen who leads number 200. That's Phil Mercer. I'm not sure what Phil Mercer's riding. I think it could be a 500 Honda. A very quick machine. I do apologise. I think it is a 4-stroke KTM bike actually, but it's quite hard to tell with the speed that these guys are going. So it's still Greg Hansen who leads this man here, number 200, Phil Mercer. And just making his way down towards us is number 153. I think that's Stephen McCreary riding. I think it's a Suzuki that Stephen's riding, but we're back to Greg Hansen, number 1, as he powers up the Farleigh Hill. Phil Mercer is now certainly closer than he's ever been in this race, so we could see some good battles ensuing between these two very talented riders, but it's still Greg Hansen, number 1, with number 200 Phil Mercer close behind. So as they both snap those throttles back and get up the hill towards the shed at the top of the hill, it's still the slight advantage to number 1 Greg Hansen as they make their way down, but Phil Mercer looks like he's intent in grabbing that first place position. So Phil Mercer makes his way around. He's going to try in a wide turn and then cut in to try and get the drive across the line, and it looks like it was working, but it's still Greg Hansen, your race leader, from number 200 Phil Mercer. But it certainly looks like it's going to be another one of those good battles between Greg Hansen and Phil Mercer. Wow, Phil Mercer just got some traction going up the hill there and just absolutely blasted past Greg Hansen's Kawasaki. So it looks like Phil Mercer is your new race leader as they leave the jump. It is indeed Phil Mercer, number 200. Number 1 Greg Hansen keeps a tight line as they head up the hill, but it's still Phil Mercer, number 200, your race leader, from number 1 Greg Hansen as they make the turn at the shed once again and head back down the hill. But it's still Phil Mercer with Greg Hansen in hot pursuit on the KX Kawasaki machine. Greg Hansen's going to go down the inside, but Phil Mercer's got the better line, I think. But as they cross the line, it's still going to be Phil Mercer, your race leader, with Greg Hansen in second position. But you have to admit, this is a fantastic race between these two very talented riders. So we're just looking at the wooded section to see the guys going up the hill, and it's still Phil Mercer, your race leader, number 200 on the KTM 4-stroke, who leads Greg Hansen on the Kawasaki 4-stroke machine. But there's nothing between these two guys as they leave the jump both together, but it's still Phil Mercer, who looks like he's now been passed once again by Greg Hansen. So as they head up the hill to make the turn at the shed. It's a slight advantage to the Kawasaki rider Greg Hansen as they make their way down the hill. Phil Mercer is still in there in second position, but looks like Phil Mercer is going to try a different line going into this corner to try and gain a little advantage. But it's still Greg Hansen as they cross the line to complete another lap, and Phil Mercer still in there in second position. So as these two gladiators start their last and final lap of this Vets International Modern Class race, let's pick up who is our race leader on this last half lap. It looks like it's still Greg Hansen, number 1, who is your race leader. Second is still Phil Mercer, number 200. But this has been a fantastic ride by Greg Hansen if he can pull this off, because he's ridden a fantastic race right from the start line, but there doesn't seem to be much sign of Phil Mercer in second position. So it just looks like it's going to be a quite easy run to the checkered flag for Greg Hansen. I don't know if Phil Mercer's maybe had a mechanical issue or that, but as they come down the hill, it's this man here, number 1, Greg Hansen, who is going to notch up his first win of the day, and a very well deserved win it was. So here he is. It's a win for number 1, Greg Hansen on the KX Kawasaki. Okay, next up we're moving on to the twin shock over 50s class. Everybody appears to be lined up and good to go. Looks like the start marshal's telling the rider to get closer to the gate. So as they leave the line, make their way into turn 1 at the famous Farleigh Castle tree. Looks like we've got a faller into turn 1 there, but it looks like he's still okay. So it looks like our early leader is number 34, that's Chris Bryan. It looks like Jan Gabors is in second position there, number 10 on the Suzuki, just going through. Now these over 50s will of course be your veterans of the twin shock class. Of course this was back in 2011, so they'll be well into their 60s by now, and the chances are many of them are still racing. And even many of these riders are racing into their 70s. So just making his way up the hill there, number 36, I think that's Bo Mybrink. So we're looking to pick up our race leader as he comes through the wooded section of the track. It's number 34. It's still Chris Bryan who leads number 10, Jan Gabors on the RM500 Suzuki. So it's the 1981 490 Michael versus the Japanese two-stroke Suzuki machine. So here's Chris Bryan. He's been riding superbly here all weekend. Rode a couple of brilliant races in the Saturday's race programme. It looks like he's continuing where he left off. Number 1 of course is the racing legend Graham Noyce. Now just another view of one of the parts of the track where you come up these steps and make the left hand turn. This can be quite a tricky part of the track if you don't get it right. Number 10 again is Jan Gabors. Graham Noyce there, number 1. An absolute British racing legend, if there was one. Now this short uphill section can be quite tricky because we have like a double step just at the top of the section, and if you don't get those double steps just absolutely right, it can throw you into all manner of big W's. Number 45, I think that's Oriel Pons once again, I think it's one of the Belgian riders, and here's Mr. Wildsport himself, number 53, Bill Brown. An absolute legend when it comes to twin shock motocross. And we're looking at number 32, I think that's Keith Hansen, who could be a new race leader. Jan Gabors is in second position. There's number 34, that's Chris Bryan, of course, who was leading this race early on, but we're looking at the legend again, Graham Noyce, who's just about to get passed by one of the other riders, and I'm sure 30 years ago Graham would never let that happen, but nevertheless Graham's still enjoying being out there racing his bike. And number 188 is Will Street, just making his way through on that YZ Yamaha machine. Looks like that Michael rider's just about to lose one of his left-sided side panels. Looks like it's hanging off. And number 27 just coming out of the woods there, that's Dave Watson. But we're back to our race leaders again. I think it's still at number 32 who is your race leader. It's still Keith Hansen. Jan Gabors is in second, and this man here, number 34, Chris Bryan, is in third position on that 81 490 Michael. We're back with Graham Noyce once again on the German Michael machine. An absolute legend in British motocross racing circles, and I'm sure you don't need me to tell you Graham's achievements. So it was a win for number 32, Keith Hansen, with Jan Gabors in second position. You could just see Graham there walking back to the paddock after his toil on the racetrack. But that brings us quite nicely to the next race, which of course is the pre-1985 and 4-strokes class, as they just leave the line and make their way into turn 3. So it looks like number 111, that's Rob Foden, who's made a very good start there, as the riders start to pile in to that very awkward little jump and the left hand turn. And number 124 just passing us now, and I think that's Jack Caswells. So as the riders exit the wooded section, it looks like we've got a change of leader. I think it's number 120 on the Husqvarna who is your race leader, but unfortunately he was not listed in the racing programme, so sorry, but I'm unable to identify that particular rider. But as you can see, this part of the track quite bumpy as the riders make their way through. Number 43 is Andy Mallock on that 1983 500 Armstrong machine. It looks like Pete Spence has stalled his Honda, but appears to have got it running once again. But here's your race leader on the right on the Husqvarna. A rider who unfortunately I can't identify because he's not listed in the race programme, but it looks like Carol Pope is in second position there on the 480 Honda. We've got a mixture here, of course, of the 4-stroke and 2-stroke machine, so they will be classed individually as they cross the start and finish line. So leading the 4-stroke class is this rider here, number 120 on the 4-stroke Husqvarna. Carol Pope is in second position there on the 480 Honda, who will be leading the pre-85 class. But this rider doing very well on this big, I think it's a 510 Husqvarna machine. I do apologise for not being able to name the rider, but he's certainly leading the four-stroke part of this event. Now, this event in 2011, of course, attracted many different riders from many different countries, and France, Italy, Belgium, USA, and there was even a team of twin shock riders from Australia that were taking part. So Farleigh Castle always has an international appeal for motocross racing. Number 12 just making his way through, that's Jem Parker on the big HPF 4-stroke Honda machine. Lovely looking bikes these, with the big massive twin shocks at the rear. Looks like we've got a rider with a red rocket that's not going to start, but there's the leader of the pre-85 class. It's Carol Pope on the 480 Honda, and this rider here, number 120, is up there in front in the 4-stroke part of this race. But once again, I do apologise for not being able to put the rider's name due to the fact that he's not listed in the racing programme. But nevertheless, as you can see, he's absolutely flying on this 4-stroke Husqvarna machine. As he heads to the turn at the top of the shed, as they call it, and makes his way down to cross the line to begin his last and final lap of this pre-1985 and 4-stroke class race. So this has been a good ride by this number 120 as he crosses the line to start his last and final lap. Number 43 once again is Andy Mallock on the Armstrong 500 machine, a 1983 bike, which of course is powered by that 500 Rotax motor. So here's our race leader as he heads towards the checkered flag to take the win in the 4-stroke part of this race. It's number 120. Carol Pope is still in the lead of the pre-1985 part of this race. So here's your rider as he comes round to take the checkered flag, but looks like a rider on an old YZ Yamaha there. But this has still been a very good ride by this rider, number 120 on the 4-stroke Husqvarna, as he comes round to take the checkered flag, and of course his first win of the day. So just to finish off this part 3 video of the racing highlights from the 2011 Vets MXDN, we're going to the International Vets MXDN race, and this was their first race of the Sunday's race programme. Don't forget, you can see the conclusion of all the races here on my YouTube channel in part 4, which will be coming soon. So the riders all lined up waiting on the gate to drop, and some talent leaving the line in this particular race as they all head in to turn 1. Remember, Werner de Wit seems to be the man to beat in this class. Has just about won everything here at Farleigh Castle this weekend. So as we look to the wooded section of the track, it is in fact number 12 Werner de Wit once again, who is your race leader on the big RM500 Suzuki as he heads up the hill to begin lap 1. And of course Werner de Wit was always fast on a motocross bike, and he nearly won the Motocross of Nations event in 1993 when he was riding for Team Belgium on a 125, when he unfortunately collided with the Irish rider Mark Farleigh. That of course allowed the Americans to take the win on the very last lap. But he also ended up 6th overall in the 1994 250 World Championships, and he always thought that he could have been in the top 5 in 1996, but he said that the bike that he had at the time just wasn't fast enough. So we're looking at a couple of the Spanish riders just making their way up the hill, and you can see that the track conditions are improving by every race. Track conditions almost perfect by this time, so hope to see some good racing before the end of the close of the day. So we're looking for a race leader who should be the Belgian Werner de Wit in first position, number 12, as he heads up the hill. Werner, of course, was another one of the very quick riders who just seemed to suffer a lot of injuries in his career, but as you can see here at Farleigh Castle, he's absolutely in electric form on this 500 Suzuki. Second is still number 4, that's Mark Eastwood on the 81 490 Michael. As we look at some of the other riders make their way through to start their second racing lap, but it's an absolutely fantastic racetrack here at Farleigh Castle, and I think that's one of the reasons that spectators turn up in their thousands each and every year to watch this kind of old style motocross. So it's still number 12, Werner de Wit, the Belgian who leads England's Mark Eastwood. Number 4 in third is number 56, I think that's Wayne Butt. Number 27, Jeff Stanton just going through. Number 11, I think that's Johan Boonen on the Suzuki. And number 1 just making his way through there, that's Neil Prince. Looks like he's getting in a battle there between a couple of the Belgian riders. Number 55 is Gary Parker. So we're back at the front of the pack with the battle for first position between number 12, Werner de Wit, and Mark Eastwood. Werner de Wit won a couple of races on this Saturday's race programme. It looks like he's on his way to his first win here on the Sunday. Number 11 going through there, that's Johan Boonen. And number 19, that's David Campbell going through on the Big Michael. And don't forget, all the remaining races from this Sunday's race programme will be in part 4, which I'll be posting on my Classic Dirt Bike TV channel very soon, so I do hope you'll take the time to take a look at those. So we're looking at number 4, that's Mark Eastwood, and still in second position, just behind race leader Werner de Wit. A very quick rider, Mark. And we're now looking at one of the Spanish riders, number 42. That's Mikel Peterson. Looks like he's riding another Suzuki. There's your race leader just going through there, Werner de Wit, number 10. We're just looking for Mark Eastwood in second position. So as we see race leader Werner de Wit in the wooded section, just emerging to start his last and final lap of this Vets International first race of the Sunday. And as you'd expect, Werner de Wit would actually go on to win the overall in this class over the course of the 2 days, with a lowest score of just 5 points. So it would be another fantastic overall win for this very talented Belgian as he heads up to the shed to make the turn to come back down the hill. But Werner de Wit at this point looking very comfortable for another win here at the 2011 Vets to Nations. Mark Eastwood is still in there in second place. That's another good ride from the Englishman. Remember, we saw some fantastic racing between himself and Werner de Wit in previous races, but and still riding a good race here on this Sunday morning. So we're looking at number A, and I think that was number 11 just going through there. I think that's Johan Boonen, who's still doing quite well at this point, but here's your race leader, Werner de Wit, number 12, as he makes his way round to start his last and final lap of this Vets International race. Jeff Stanton just going through there, number 27. Number 56 once again, I think that's still Wayne Butt. David Campbell again, number 19, heading up the hill. So here is your race leader coming round to begin his last and final lap of this Vets International race. Werner de Wit from Belgium, riding the 500 Suzuki bike. Doesn't seem to be many challengers for that second position. Looks like Mark Eastwood is quite farther behind at this point, but it looks like a comfortable win for Werner de Wit. Number 56 again is Wayne Butt just going through. Number 19, David Campbell, another one of the Danish riders just making their way through. But I do hope you've enjoyed what's been served up here in these last 3 videos from the 2011 Vets MXDN event. I do hope you've enjoyed them. The commentary, of course, is not up to Murray Walker's type standards, but we certainly do our best, so look out for more of the same in part 4. But what can you say about this extremely talented Belgian? Werner de Wit is an absolute icon on a motocross machine, and he's put in some performance over the course of the 2 days here at Farleigh Castle to take his way to another win. Looks like one of the Australians just parked trackside here, but here he is crossing the line to take the checkered flag. It's another win for the superb Belgian Werner de Wit. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed my ramblings so far from the 2011 Vets MXDN event, and I do hope you will subscribe to my channel to see more of the same when we all return once more to see the final part 4.